Hello and welcome back to the Grapple Theory podcast. Thank you so much for joining us once again. Now, for today's interview, we're once again, like last week, heading north, not quite to the border, but near enough, as we talk to the new North Wrestling Champion. We're going to be talking to him about North, about his time there, about his Pursuit Pro Wrestling training school, and everything he's doing with that, which is really, really cool. Stick around for that. It's really interesting. And we're going to be talking to him about loads more, including his hopes for the future, not just for himself, but the future of British wrestling as well, and up-and-coming talent, and also all about the context of British wrestling. We'll be talking about all that, plus loads more. It's a great interview. Stick around for it. Delighted to welcome to the podcast this week, Liam Slater. Liam, thank you so much for coming on the podcast. Talk to me about the last year in wrestling. We're about a year removed from wrestling returning after the pandemic. Had you set yourself any goals or things you wanted to achieve coming back into wrestling? Because it seems you've had a really good year.
Do you know what? No, it wasn't. Really. So I'd taken a bit of time out from wrestling, and just as I was going, right, I'm actually going to buckle back into this. It was 2020, and then obviously the whole world stopped. So I was at a point where I was like, right, okay, I'm going to come back and do a little bit more out of it. Then through the pandemic, myself and Nathan Black came together. We started Pursuit Pro Wrestling, which is the training school that I run out of Sheffield with Nathan.
Yeah.
And really, that was the catalyst of it, was for me to go, well, in order for me to be helping people develop as wrestlers, I myself have to be way more into wrestling than I have been. So I feel like I've had a strong start to a return of wrestling. I feel like I'm doing it more at my own pace now, and taking stuff that I want to take a little bit more, and not being out every weekend and all that sort of stuff. But I feel like I'm choosing the right things and going down the right path with it. So I've been very fortunate that I've been granted the opportunities that I have working with people in good companies that have given me the platform to go out wrestling. So extremely fortunate is the way that I would consider this first year back.
Sure. And I want to pick up on that because, like you say, when you're balancing having a training school as well as being a professional wrestler yourself, and also in terms of, like you said, that sort of that push it gave you to also better yourself because you want to be better for the people you're training. Is it the sort of thing where it is a sort of tough juggling act in terms of knowing when to not overdo it, when to go out and wrestle, when to take it easy for a little bit?
Yeah, so it was funny, this is a conversation I had with Robbie X once we'd come back and started doing some shows. And we were doing the training stuff, and he's like, oh, so it's way less bumps for you now. And I was like, no, if anything, I'm taking more. We do Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday. There's 2 sessions on a Thursday. I coach all of them. We have a beginner's course that we run through and stuff like that, and that's me teaching people from day one. And say for example, for that beginner's course, I give and take everything. So every arm drag that they learn, every hip toss that they learn, body slam, I will give them and I will take them. Because if I don't trust them to do it on me, then there's absolutely no way that I would trust them to go out and do it on somebody that is less experienced. So I'm taking a hell of a lot of bumps and stuff like that. So to go back to your question, it's more so the fact of the balancing act of, yes, I would like to be places. Yes, I would like to be doing stuff. I have then also got to recognize my position as a trainer in that I have to hold myself in as a certain light.
Yeah.
But then also to go, actually, this spot isn't for me. This should be for somebody else. I should be putting this person forward to go and do this. And it's a give and take out of them. I need to be out and doing stuff, but at the same point as well, I need to be saying that's not a place for me, but how about this person, to give them an opportunity to go out and have a successful career. And also as well, it's a case of going, actually, I can't do that because that then means that I'm not there for this Saturday. So I've got to be aware. And then there's some times where I've got to go, actually, I need to go and do this, and let's get some cover in for this, or let's not do this certain thing.
Sure. So do you enjoy that side of it? Let's talk about Pursuit first, then, while we're on the subject. Do you how much do you enjoy being able to sort of pass on that knowledge you've learned onto sort of the next generation of British wrestling?
I absolutely adore it. There's nothing else that I would rather be doing than this. I am, and this is me blowing my own trumpet or whatever I'm saying is, I feel I'm a way better coach than I am a wrestler.
Right.
Like I'm pretty okay at the wrestling side of stuff, but I feel like I have a pretty good way of communicating stuff. And I also feel like if you ask the people that train with us, they would also go, yes, Liam has a good way of communicating stuff, or else they're doing a lot of bumps. They're not doing a load of bumps. I'm joking. But I feel like that is a way better play. Like I get to do what I really enjoy, which is helping people develop. So in my time away from wrestling, like I went full time into personal training. And that was a really fulfilling experience about helping people like develop themselves and get better. I just do that now, but rather than transforming people's bodies, I get to help them become a professional wrestler. And like what's really rewarding is seeing people that were doing stuff that I've now helped elevate up, or at least had a part in elevating up. But then also people that have trained day one with us that are now at a point where they're going out and doing shows. And I'm like, I'm responsible for this person going out and doing stuff. And that's a really rewarding thing. So I couldn't ask for any better position to be in terms of being able to operate and run a full-time wrestling school that people can come down and enjoy. And I just think that we've got a really good atmosphere and community that I just adore being part of.
Yeah, which is really important. And you mentioned talking about sort of like blowing your own trumpet, but we've had, like I said, we had Andy from North on who couldn't speak highly enough of you. And we had recently as well, Commander Stephanie Sterling on the show as well, who talked about training with you and said that they learned like so much just from the way you teach and the way that you sort of, I guess, essentially, I think they said that it was the case that you don't ask anything of them that you wouldn't do of yourself or expect of yourself, which I think is a really important way to go about it.
Yeah, absolutely. So on that front, like take Commander for example, like they came back from the US and we're in a position where they had stuff like North coming up and they wanted to get more ingrained into the scene, but wanted to develop their wrestling skills. So for me, that was a case of going, let's have a look at where we are at this moment in time and let's build up from there to get more and more comfortable with being in a wrestling ring. And they already understood like the character side out of it and all that stuff, but to develop their wrestling has been a really positive experience, and it's been really fun and rewarding. And on that front, it's very much a case of me going, let me think about who you are as a person, what you're capable of, and then pushing forward into that. And like, I'm going to push people to the extent that I think that they need pushing, but I've also got to recognize that people operate in different ways, and people have like, in terms of pursuit, we have people that want to be full-time professional wrestlers, people that want to do it on a weekend, people that never ever want to be on a show, they just enjoy doing the training. I'm going to help them to the maximum ability that I can, but their end goals are all different, and I need to recognize that rather than like a one shoe fits all. Everybody's got to be wrestling every single day of every single week, or else you're a terrible professional wrestler. That's not what this is about. It's about people enjoying themselves.
Yeah, for sure. And that's something as well that I think, like you say, is really important. Not just that, but in terms of, say, the Commander as well, for example, like someone who's got that sort of like big, larger-than-life character already. And you need to sort of, I guess, tailor that training more towards what they need, which you probably wouldn't do with, say, someone else who might need something completely different.
Yeah, absolutely. And say with Commander as well, like, what is a benefit more than anything else is their size and power that they have and how commanding they are in a ring, that then I can go, what about this idea and what about this idea? And then they come to me with ideas about what about this and this, and I go, okay, cool, let's work on this bit, let's try and get this into here. Which then, so the other week they came, because they do a lot of choke slams. They were like, what? They said, I don't know if this will work, but what about like a double choke slam bomb? And I was like, let's give it a go. Threw the crash mat in, and they nailed it, and it looks fantastic. And again, it's that give and take of like, come with me, come with ideas for me, and we'll either execute on it or we'll slightly change it. And likewise, I come with ideas for them of going, what about this? What about that? How about if we get into this position, think about like your placement of this and how you might go into that. And just, again, being more focused in on what a person needs rather than being like, and you're going to go and do this.
Yeah.
Well, why? If it doesn't apply to them, why would they do it?
Yeah. Yeah, and you mentioned like the rewarding side of it, but also I imagine as a wrestling fan, it must be really cool to like say teach someone that sort of move and then see them pull it off in the ring and be like, yeah, that looks awesome.
Yeah, totally. So there's two bits with that. We do like in-house training shows, which are basically a training session where people come down in the gear and like we run it through in like a show scenario. They give obviously at the moment wrestling's like really weird landscape of like there are quite prominent shows happening, and especially within this Yorkshire area, it's quite prominent shows happening, and then there's not really any middle ground out of it. So for people to get that jump can be quite difficult. So something that me and Nathan wanted to do was provide like a platform for people to start getting their feet wet in terms of like running matches, but then also giving them good quality footage that then they could send to a promoter and be like, hey, here's this thing that I've done. And rather than it being like in a training school with the lights on where they're just in like the training gear, it's a full show and it can sort of mask that, which then they get given that opportunity because someone looks at it and they go, oh, wow, like, look at you being on a show. You must know what you're doing in a sense. So from the training show side of stuff, for me to get to sit back and watch people execute stuff and perform it at a high level, and we put these out on like his YouTube channel, which is Pushing Pro Wrestling on YouTube, just as a cheap plug there. I love them. I get so much out of them, and I enjoy them, and I enjoy seeing people coming with ideas and executing on them. And like we've had some incredible matches that should not have happened in like a training school, but they have done. Or sorry, a training facility, but they have done. And then likewise, when I get to go out to shows, and I'm on with like our crew, and then getting them or seeing them perform at the level that they perform at, like I can't help but smile and be proud of it because I'm proud of everybody that comes through. And like, again, that's super rewarding for me. But then also in the training school, like when I see people doing stuff that they're like, I've got this idea, and then they do it, it's just really nice to see. Like, it's just really fulfilling. Like, I love seeing that part of it because it's people going like, oh, wow, like I can do that thing. It's just nice to see,
No, for sure.
It's rewarding.
Yeah, no, I'm sure. And let's talk about yourself in the ring then. Let's get on to, I guess, North first, because that's, I think, the place that people would expect us to start. But also, I think it's the place where it's fair to say you've had a really good amount of success in the last few months, especially. So talk to us about, I guess, first of all, before we get on to the title and everything, talk to us about North as a whole. Because like I said, we had Andy on the show, and he couldn't speak highly enough of you. And he was talking about how you were sort of like one of the sort of like pillars of North, been there from the beginning and really seen it grow. How nice has that been to be part of a company that you've been able to see that growth sort of steadily over a number of years and still be part of it, be part of that rise with it?
Yeah, like I love it. I love North. Like I would say that the Northeast is like a second home for me where a majority of my wrestling has happened there, whether that be on like the smaller shows like an MEW and stuff like that, which has just a rabid fan base, or like into stuff like WCPW, which was obviously like on a mega scale, but a lot of my wrestling happened in Newcastle. And North is very much like the spiritual home of that. To come in from day one and be on that first show, to see it go into the second show, which didn't draw as well, and then it went, right, let's buckle down and move past this, to then go off and flourish. And like obviously like through the pandemic we had like the change of venue, and I think the Anarchy Brew is just like the best location. And then from being with Bowers and like talking to him and just the good solid dude that he is, that cares about the product and cares about the people that are in there, both the wrestlers and the fans, like it's just a pleasure to be there. It's always a fun environment. Like I never feel like I go to a North show and I'm like, man, I don't want to be here. It's the complete opposite where I'm like, I want to be there more than anything else. And like a big driving force for me when it came to coming back this year was I didn't want to let down Bowers. I didn't want to let down the people at North that had seen me grow over the years. And it was a struggle for me last year, really, in not knowing who I was and not feeling like I was really being an authentic self in the ring.
Sure.
To be now like, okay, I really feel like I'm executing on what I'm doing, and I couldn't have done that without Bowers being there and giving me the platform to do it on and giving me the support and also the trust in that the steps that I was taking were the right steps to take. Because it could be very easy for somebody to go, actually, no, I don't want you to do that. I want you to do this. And instead, he was very positive and was like, yeah, let's do it. I believe in what you're doing. And I like to think that it's executed well, and the people that come to North have really enjoyed the growth of Liam Slater as a wrestler.
For sure, absolutely. And I'd say that as well. And the fact is that I think that, I mean, especially if we're taking from, say, like January onwards, I say that North has probably been one of, like, the promotions of the year because, you know, they're selling out consistently, always get good crowds. The shows are always great. I've not been had a chance to get up there, but, like, from what I've seen, what I've heard, you know, the shows are always top class as well. And it must be nice, like you say, to be part of that environment where there's a company putting on these absolute bangers of shows, like, you know, month after month after month.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, it's a joy to see, and it's a joy to be a part of. And I'm extremely proud of it because it's just been an authentic, homegrown development that has come over time and over the years that I think people are really starting to recognise, oh, hang on a minute, this is a really important company in the UK. And I still think that it's flying under the radar a little bit. And I still think that it's still not as recognised as it could be. But if I'm being completely honest, we are, and I say we because I feel that strongly about being part of North, that we are one of the best, if not the best consistent companies that have happened since we came back from the pandemic.
Yeah.
Like, I genuinely, truly believe that the best quality shows, with the best quality wrestling, with the best quality characters, that offers a variety of stuff that is just fun to be around and fun to watch. And, like, I couldn't ask anything more out of it.
Yeah, and I totally agree. And that's the thing, isn't it? Like, you hope to see it continuing to grow and maybe getting that recognition, because obviously it took TNT years to stop being the underground, you know, best kept secret of British wrestling. And now it seems to have broken through that barrier and people seem to know about it. And you hope the same goes with North as well.
I think we're on that trajectory. And I think that by the end of this year, this conversation will be outdated because it will be a case of, yes, completely recognised as top company in the UK.
Yeah. I mean, obviously, I never hope our podcasts are outdated, but let's hope that this one is, right? Let's hope that it does change and that happens. But, I mean, talk to me about that. And in terms of now having seen that rise, having been part of that rise, having been there from the beginning, to now hold the top belt, I mean, how does that feel for you on a personal level?
Yeah, so it's a funny one with belts, and, like, you ask a majority of people, like, they would probably say that I'm pretty understated in terms of, like, my reactions to stuff in wrestling. As a pure example out of this, when I won the WCPW tag belts with Johnny Moss, like, the thing that I was more proud of on that day was the fact that there was a cage match for the main event. And I was the one that was orchestrating putting the cage up. Right. And, like, we got it up in, like, 11 minutes. And I was like, yo, that was, like, I'm so glad that we got that done. And it's like, did you not win, like, a tag belt earlier on? It's like, yeah, but, like, we got the cage up in 11 minutes. And, like, that was a really, like, big achievement.
Yeah.
In saying that, I'm extremely proud of being North champion. Like, I would never put myself at, like, a top point in terms of wrestling. Like, I always feel like I'm very good in, like, a mid-card position. And now and again, I get put into these, like, main event slots that I'm a bit like, oh, should I be here? So to have the belt is quite a nice, like, justification of what I've been doing. And the pride of being like, okay, cool, here's this company that are doing fantastic, that I'm now, like, a figurehead of, just pushes me to want to be better more than anything else. So, like, having the belt and, like, my aim for, like, this championship run is to give as much credibility to the wrestling of North as possible. Like, I love Rory, but that entire, like, his title reign is very much character and all this, like, grandeur of it, which is completely Rory Coyle. What I want to do with it is to make the North belt, like, the number one wrestling belt in the country by having great matches and by people going, wow, like, we're really missing out by not being there. So really the pride of it comes from now putting in place the work and the groundwork that we've been doing from day one, basically.
Yeah, and you picked up on it, but talk to me about that feud you had with Rory for the belt, starting from when it started to finally, winning the title. I mean, it seems like, again, like as well as we've said, North has been like one of the promotions here. It seemed like a really great feud for the year as well. It seemed like a really good story that you were telling in just the build of it all.
I would like to think so. It's something that I'm extremely proud of. Like, I will look back on that as probably like a career highlight of things that fell in place, and then we took advantage of those things falling in place, and also like a complete credit to the camera team that exist within North. So Alex and Kirsten as main people, and there's people that I'm not listing in that, but the shots that they have taken that have told that story put me on a pedestal that I could never get to with just being a wrestler. And I think they are, as much as the wrestlers, they're a crucial part of North. And Carl, who's on music, and Chop, who runs all like the visuals and stuff like that. Those people, the crew that North have, are like some of the best, if not the best in the country. And the shots that they got then allowed me to go, oh, this is a cool story point, and then we can do this with this, and then that can build into there, and then just has a big old bloody crescendo that happened that I felt like needed to happen to really finalise the feud. Really put like a stamp of approval on it.
Yeah, and was that quite also, because it seemed like you guys have great chemistry in the ring as well. Like, was it quite an organic thing for you guys to be able to go in the ring and tell that story? Do you gel quite well just generally, you and Rory?
I would say so, yes. In that we both have a similar mind for wrestling, and we both have a similar way of like, oh, well, we could go to here and could go to here. And just, it's very easy to work with, and it's very easy to elevate yourself up when you're in with Rory because of the gravitas that he pulls with him. Like, it's hard not to want to give more when he's giving as much as he does. Just little bits like the way that he carries himself coming to the ring, and this isn't just from the feud that we have, but like from the years gone by, where like every single time. So to put like a point onto this, we were in ring, and as we stood across from each other, I'm a pretty cool and calm guy, but like I could feel like my hands shaking like while I was in ring, and I was like, this is cool, like this is a real moment that like people are really into, and I couldn't have done that without Rory. And I think we bounce off of each other well in terms of who he is as a wrestler and who I am as a wrestler.
Yeah, and it also must be really nice as well, like you say there, to have been wrestling for so long, but to still have those almost like pinch yourself moments, those moments where like you're like, oh, this is weird, like handshaking, like that's not a normal thing, like, but that's pretty cool.
Yeah, like I knew the match that we were having was like an important one, and I knew that it was like bringing an end to like a story and a reign and like a chapter that I was like, this is a really big pivotal moment here that I'm being a part of. And like I've had those now and again, but never really like in ring where I've gone, okay, this is really cool. One example would be again WCPW when we were in Altrincham, which is where it was the Cody Rhodes and Kurt Angle match. So the show opened with me and Johnny Moss against Mustache Mountain. And as a bit of background into that, I used to do a load of like production stuff with WCPW, so I helped put the ring up and all the lighting and stuff like that, and all the stage. So I'd put all that up. We'd been there hours, and then to be able to walk out and look at like 2,000 people there and be like, I helped put all this together, and like I helped this show like be the show that it is, was a really cool and fulfilling moment. And it almost felt the same when I was in with Rory, but that was way more of like we've helped bring all these people in and listen to how much they care about it.
Yeah, which is really cool as well. And you mentioned WCPW a lot. We spoke to Andy about that as well, and he didn't quite class it as a rivalry, but he sort of said that, when North was starting, obviously it was the same sort of time WCPW was starting. And there was that sort of bit of like anxiety from him for the first few months, being like, there's this big company who've come and got these big names. Are we going to be able to actually pull through this? I want to know, like, as someone who, like you said, sort of worked behind the scenes, but also wrestled for them, like, how did that feel working for both companies in terms of, was there also that vibe amongst, say, like, maybe some of the more local talent, or, like, was it a very different atmosphere between each company in terms of like the fans they were drawing and things like that?
I would say it was a different atmosphere in that, to sort of relate it to music, WCPW and then it became Defiant was like big. It was like a big mainstream rock event at like a stadium where it still has a cool vibe to it, and like it's real fun, and like the grandeur of everything was just like off the chain. To compare that to North, I always feel like North is a very like punk atmosphere. It's very DIY. It's like, let's go into this bar, let's set the ring up. Yes, there's lighting and stuff like that, but is everybody putting the love and the care and attention into that? I'm not saying that it wasn't happening at WCPW. It was just that differs when you have homegrown stuff compared to, there were some arenas that we were doing where we were bringing in people that would put up full lighting rigs.
Yeah.
So like they've got like, it's like being like sent up into the sky on like motors and stuff like that. And I'm stood there like, this is silly. Like, this is insane. So it was two different ends of the spectrum that were both putting on really quality wrestling. But for North, it was very much a case, here's the heart and soul of it. Like here's like a real gritty DIY end of it. And then the other end of the spectrum was like, WCPW pretty much knocking on the door of major wrestling companies.
Yeah.
Because I love thinking back to WCPW and like the time period of it all. And like really, it was extremely pivotal in a lot of things that happened within that era. Like I don't want to say it's underrated and underappreciated, but in a sense it is. How like now, because it's finished, like it's easy to forget about, but like it was a big thing that was happening at the time. So they were existing in different planes, so to speak.
No, sure. Yeah. And like you say, like I think if WCPW was like still around or Defiant as it then became, like you'd easily class them, or like if they were continuing that trajectory at least, you'd easily class them amongst like the Progresses and the Rev Pros and the ICWs in terms of like biggest indie companies in the country.
Totally. I just think for WCPW, it was a candle that was burning really, really brightly. And it needed to come to an end point out of it. Like, he just needed that bookmark out of it, really. And it is a shame that it ended, but there was so much that happened in such a short amount of time that it was like, just go, and that's it. And we're done out of it. But to look back on it, some of the stuff that happened was just insane. And, like, some of the personal, like, memories and stories that I've got from it, from working with people or being backstage on production stuff, things that I'll never forget, and just bits that I'm like, that probably shouldn't be happening, or like probably shouldn't be in a position where like this has happened. And like a slight anecdote out with that, when Kurt Angle was on the show against Joe Hendry, the way that the entranceway was set up, it was like in a U position, so it comes up and out like that. And for whatever reason, Kurt Angle completely avoids the curtains to go through, and he sees a gap between the truss and the lights that are on the side here that's like really not big enough for people to fit through. And he just takes that direction. He's like, well, I'm going to fit through this. So I'm stood down at the bottom with Rich Dunn, who's NGW promoter and also was running production with me. And he stood there shouting at Kurt, like, Kurt, no, Kurt. And he just goes through and then does his entrance. And like only me and Rich know that happened. Because outside of that, he comes out, he shows it, and the crowd just completely get on with the show. And we just stood there, and he was like, I can't believe I just shouted at Kurt Angle to not go through the lights. That's stupid. So it's those little personal bits that like really make WCPW like something that I hold close to my heart.
Yeah, for sure. And that's really cool to hear. That is really cool to hear. And talk to me then in terms of, we talked about North, we talked about WCPW, talk about sort of, I guess, something even more recent, last few days, something you put out on your social media. Talk about to me about the context. What is the context, you know? So
for me, in terms of the era of wrestling that we sit in, and this goes back from when I first started to like, if anybody's like followed my career, they know like I did the Venga Boys stuff with like the dancing and stuff like that. And that's not me as a person. And that probably comes through in terms of us talking here or stuff that you see online. Like, I'm not like a big party person, but that was me trying to fit in with what I needed to do at that time to elevate myself up. And then from there, I got a little bit lost in the, I knew I loved wrestling. I knew I loved a certain style of wrestling, but I never felt like it really fit and clicked. And this past year has been like a bit of a self-discovery of like who I am as a wrestler and stuff like that, which led me to going like, in terms of a modern world of pro wrestling, I am a postmodern pro wrestler in that like a lot of people operate in a way in wrestling because that's the thing to do and that's just what we do. And like, here's this thing that everybody's doing. And I just don't feel like I fit in with that. I don't feel like that's me as a wrestler. I feel like when I try and go down that route, I'm pushing a square peg in a circle. Or like, so really for me, it's a case of addressing that out and saying there's nothing outside of the text. Like, this is about pro wrestling, and everything that operates outside of pro wrestling really, really doesn't matter. Because what I love is the art of professional wrestling that happens inside of a ring. Outside of that, I don't massively care. And that can be a really hard point to sit in when a lot of people that are successful is because of everything that happens outside of the ring and everything that happens outside of the text. So the context is that we are professional wrestlers, and I will be the best professional wrestler that I can be. And what happens when someone steps in the ring with someone that cares deeply about professional wrestling?
Brilliant. And we've spoken about you sort of like picking your sort of like, your dates more carefully around doing stuff with Pursuit, things like that, being more careful with when you work, where you work, things like that. So talk to me about what the future holds for Liam Slater in terms of places you might want to work or people you might want to face, or, guess what, if we're saying like, if we're having this conversation this time next year, is there anything more that you would have wanted to achieve in that time period?
So overall, and this is probably one of my downfalls, and this is again where I suppose in a world of modern professional wrestling where people create lists and they're like, I want to wrestle this person, it's never really been something that I've done in the past, and it's never really been something that like I like to do, because I like to feel like you put me in the ring with anybody and I'll try and get the best out of them, or I'll at least try and give the best professional wrestling match that I can. In saying that, to fit within the context of modern professional wrestling, I'd like to challenge myself against like the people that are considered very good professional wrestlers. So like within this country, like I think people like us Jim are people that I see myself like working against well. Gene Money's a great example of someone that I wrestled recently, and I think we both developed well out of it. If you look at like people within Northwest Strong, like that entire group of people, I think are very, very good in professional wrestling. And I'd like to challenge myself in that capacity. There's Crash Boat, and like I've wrestled Jake a good number of times. I don't feel like I have wrestled Bandicoot, but not in the place where he's at the moment. So like that would be fun to get singles matches in with them. Liam Slater is someone that keeps getting better and better. Like, and again, I've wrestled him recently. I'd like to do that again. And then to go into a wider world out of it, I think probably one of people that you would consider the best technical wrestlers in the world at the moment that are independent would be now Jonathan Gresham and Alex Shelley. Like, if there's people that I would enjoy wrestling, it would be them. But then outside of that, everybody that like trains at Pursuit, so people like Joe Wade, like there's Eve Bateman as well, who's a fantastic female wrestler. There's a slight bias in that because she's my partner, but that would be a great opportunity to wrestle her somewhere. From there, the people that are coming up through, like Tom Bryce and Orange Shoes and Chili Heat, and I could go on and on. There's a Jim Maguire and a Music Man. Basically, give me anybody and I will find a way to wrestle them that highlights me and highlights them as much as possible. So there's a long rambling list for you.
No, I like it. And then what if I sort of flip it as someone who does the training as well? Obviously, I wouldn't expect you to name sort of everyone you've got at Pursuit, but in terms of in the North as a whole, whether they're training at Pursuit or not, who are the people, say for people like myself who are more southern based, based in London or further down in the south, who are the northern talents up and coming that you think people should be keeping an eye on, the ones that you think they're going to be the next big thing up in the north, or hopefully, in the whole country?
Cool. So I'm going to start out by apologising to people that I probably don't mention, in that like there is a whole crew of people that sit across the M62 that are incredible wrestlers that do not get the highlights that they deserve. Because for whatever reason, we seem to be stuck on this M62 belt. And like, yeah, we sort of go up a little bit into Newcastle, but like to go down south, there's a real big barrier that lies between it. And there's probably, in the same essence, I look at it and see like quite a lot of Southern wrestling that happens. There's probably people in the south that also don't get the recognition that they get to come up north.
Yeah.
To break that in even further, I think the Northwest scene at the moment is incredibly strong, and there's a lot of promotions out there. In saying that, in terms of the Yorkshire scene, both West Yorkshire, South, I mean, barely anything that happens in North Yorkshire, and then like the East Riding of all, like, and that sort of area, there's very little that goes on, and there's such a core base of people that exist in there that deserve to be seen, basically. But to run through it, I think like our lead person at the moment, in terms of someone that comes from Pursuit, is Liam Slater, who's just like, who's off and away and doing whatever, and he will continue to do whatever he wants to do because he's extremely talented out of it. Lads that sit closely to him in terms of like a group, I think Jet Marshall has this great like Homicide, low-key, early Ring of Honor vibe to him, which is really fun to watch. And there's Ellis Barker that trains in with them as well, who has almost like an Angelico style of wrestling in terms of like being able to like move into positions and like wrap people up and stuff like that. He's a fantastic wrestler. We've got Joe Wade, who has completely transformed himself over the last couple of years. Crash Boat, a fantastic tag team. We've got a really strong developing group of females that train with us. So like I mentioned, Eve Bateman, there's Natalie Sykes that trains with us. There's Rebecca Resner that trains with us, that are all getting better and better. In terms of characters that we have, also to touch into it, in terms of lads that come from Hull, there is Vucic, who needs somebody to look at him because he's incredible and has yet to be recognised by a major company. And once they do, he's off and away. There's Jack Maxwell as well, who has this great, like, stoic feel to him, and he's starting to do stuff at like Fight Factory, so he's a great guy. There's Reese and Rogan that are a great tag team. Hardman Down's a great guy to look at there in terms of characters, and I feel like this is something that is missed out a lot in terms of British wrestling, where there's a lot of solid wrestlers, and this comes from a wrestler myself. I feel like there's a lack of major characters that inject fun into wrestling. So Jim Maguire, who is, I think, 55, 56, and you wouldn't know by looking at him move around. Music Man, Lewis Hill, is just a ball of energy. We've got a team called Fiery Delivery, which is Aiden Sparks and Posty Malone. Posty Malone is a postman by trade, and he's a postman as a wrestler out of it. We have Freak Show, which is Axel the Clown and Freaky Felicia, that have gone down this route and completely gone off with it. And there's probably a bunch more people, like in terms of people that I've trained and are starting to come up. There's Tom Bryce, Orange Shoes, Luca Blake, Chili Heatwave. There's Velvet Vaughn that's starting to come up, and there's loads more that are just about to start breaking into shows and stuff like that. Really, it's the promotions that need to catch up with us, because we've got a whole bunch of people, and I know I've listed so many people there, but I truly believe that we have some of the best undiscovered talent that's in the UK that just need an opportunity to go out and do stuff, which is why I do like the in-house training shows and put them on YouTube for people to be seen by people that they might not usually see. Yeah.
And I guess picking up on what you said during that as well, that must be a little frustrating, because like you said earlier, I guess that the North is seen as especially this place where there's this huge depth of talent, but maybe not the amount of shows to be able to cover all that talent, because like you said, you have these sort of elite shows, but not really much below that in terms of before you get to like the small ones, there's no mid-level. Whereas obviously, and that's I guess the tricky part with the fact that sort of that North talent, that M62 divide, like you say, doesn't normally come down South a lot, is the fact that, you know, places like London have that whole range. You have the big shows, but you have the mid-level shows, but you have the small shows as well. And where people can really just grow and perfect themselves. And it must be, I guess, a little frustrating to not have that in the North, to, you know, sort of be stuck with all this talent that some of it, you know, doesn't get utilised as it should because there's just not enough shows to go around.
It is frustrating. It is really frustrating. And part of that comes into a personal bias as well of like, I train with these people and I want to see them do well and I want to see them go out places. So it is frustrating on that end. And there's many times that I'm like, do I just start running something? But then like, that's not for me to do. It just has to happen organically. And I think it will do. And I think there will be stuff that starts to pop up. And again, it's just a case of who takes that leap and who takes that lead out of it. And this isn't to say that there aren't promotions within this sort of like M62 belt. I mean, especially in the Northwest, like there's a bunch of stuff there. And I do feel like the Northwest has that better divide, or not a divide, has that better tearing up system that operates and runs through. And like within this area, we've got places like Rise and we've got places like Tidal. Across in like Lincolnshire, there's like Fight Factory as well that are doing some great shows and stuff like that. BWR has really elevated themselves up recently and they're really showing some good stuff. And they've got their Evo shows, which is like a place in terms of like another level under. There's NGW that's kicking back up again. But like for the most part, these are all places that have like either a really defined roster or up at a point where it's like quite a high caliber of wrestling. And I feel like there needs to be a couple more that pop up that are just allowed to exist out of it. A slightly frustrating thing is when we have big companies that come to this area, say for example a Progress, say for example a Rev Pro, that run in Sheffield that have very few Yorkshire wrestlers on there. Now, hopefully, like I just recently got announced for like Progress in their like Natural Progression Series qualifying stuff, which ironically is in Newcastle. I'm hoping that like I can make a bit of a mark into there, and then we've got people like Leon, myself, this kid like us too that comes from Yorkshire, that we start making more of an imprint into that. G Money is very much like within our area as well.
Yeah.
But then like these bigger companies, I'd love for them to take a chance on some of the wrestlers that are coming out of this area, and I think actually they'd be very surprised and pleased with the caliber of wrestling that they get.
Oh yeah, and you mentioned that. That's the thing, because I saw that a bit on Twitter as well. I think a few people frustrated by that, especially say the Progress thing. And I see it as like, and again, it's like I'm sort of like on the fence with it. But like I see like from Progress's point of view, I guess they're thinking like, let's bring the wrestlers they don't normally see up north. But like you say, when you've got a big platform like that, a big name like Progress as well, you sort of I guess want it to showcase more the talent you've got there. So they're like, there's this talent we can bring south.
Yeah, and again, this is a really fine balancing act. This is not a knock on Progress or Rev Pro at all, because I completely understand that they have a roster of people and the stories that they're telling, and there's these people in different areas that they want to go and put their product forward into. So for them to come to, say, a Sheffield and then completely flip around their card just because we happen to be from Yorkshire isn't the way of doing it at all. Because then that's also not fair on the southern contingent of wrestlers that deserve to come up north and have their talent shown as well. It's just a frustrating end out of it, of seeing it. But like, again, I can completely understand why you would come with your roster of people and go, this is the show that we're doing. Because it is the show that they're doing. So why change that formula? I completely understand that. And I completely appreciate it as well, because it's a risk. It's always going to be a risk. And hopefully it's more of a case that there's more organic stuff that starts happening in and around this area that then forces the eyes, that then they go, actually, let's take a chance on these people out of it. And that mix happens a lot. But there's always going to be regional divides, and that's not a bad thing. That's just the way that it is. Like, people operate cities and counties, and like the north-south divide, and there's some people that completely span all over that, and that just is the nature of wrestling. It would just be nice to see people be out a little bit more. But again, there's only so many opportunities, there's only so many spaces, there's only so many people that can get into places. It's just the nature of the shows that we run.
No, for sure. Well said. Well, we're going to move on to our closing feature now, and this is where we're going to learn a little more about you shoot. This isn't about Liam Slater, the wrestler. This is about yourself, personally now. So I'm going to run a few questions by you, and you let me know what you think of.
Yeah, of course.
So the first one is my favorite pre-show meal.
So I don't massively eat on show days. I'll usually have some fruit more than anything else. So like I don't know, like a pot of fruit usually, and then I'll have like a pre-workout before I go out and wrestle, and then I will make up for that by probably stopping at a McDonald's and eating a load of food after the show, because then it doesn't matter.
Well, that's the thing, because the next one is my favourite post-pinfall pig out.
Cool. So in terms of finishing up on a show, we will usually find a McDonald's that's close to the venue, and as a group we will go and get some food more often than not. The usual McDonald's meal will probably be something along the lines of like a share box of nuggets, like more than anything else. I'm a pretty simple guy on that end. I tried the weird like limited edition burger that they had recently. I think it was like a Greek style one, and I was not impressed. Can't go wrong with chicken nuggets.
No, like they're the sort of thing where they're not good. Like they're not good nuggets, but like
absolutely they're terrible. But they're consistent. And I'm okay.
Well, the key question. Key question if you're going nuggets is what dip do you put with them?
Barbecue sauce. I'm a barbecue sauce guy, so I'll take that barbecue sauce any day over anything else.
No, I go for the sweet curry myself. That's mine. That's my one.
I'm a bit bland with flavours, if I'm completely honest.
I wouldn't say the curry one has flavour. It's just mega sweet. It's just ridiculous.
Well, the barbecue, maybe they're just the same ones. Maybe the barbecue and the sweet curry are just exactly the same.
They just colour it differently. You think it's different.
Pretty much, right?
Brilliant. Well, the final food-based one is just your favourite food in general.
I'm a big donut guy.
Nice.
I like donuts. So on that, I would say the best donut that's on the market is the Morrison's donuts. Either the 5-pack that you can get, or some Morrison's do like cool like flavoured ones with like stuff on top of them. But like in terms of like bang for your buck and like money out of it, I'd go to a Morrison's any day over like a Krispy Kreme and stuff like that.
Oh yeah.
Just they're better overall. They're a better product and they're way cheaper. So like
it's like a pound, isn't it, for like 5?
Yeah, and it's like I'll take those ones over paying out my ass for something that I don't massively enjoy. But yeah, I'm a big donut guy.
Nice. I relate to that because the Morrison's, the way to go is the salted caramel, but they never have the salted caramel because they're always the first to go.
The salted caramel one, I had it once and I was like, this is the best thing that I've ever had in my entire life, and then I've never seen it.
No, they have it like, it sells like that. Like, I used to like work near a Morrison's, like go there every day for lunch, and I'm like, if they have it, I'm getting it because it's so rare.
Absolutely.
Nice, I relate to that. I like that. Music's the next sort of subcategory because it's the first one's the song that gets me the most hyped.
That varies, and I have like a bit of a playlist on my Spotify that I go through. So my current track at North is "Never Fight a Man with a Perm" by Idols. Like that gets me going pretty well. I'm a big fan of like 80s like post-punk stuff. So like Gang of Four, usually like are on a playlist out of it, and then to sort of flip that down another end, I quite like a bit of new metal, like unironically. So like Give Me My Way by Limp Bizkit, and then I'm super hyped out of it.
Love it. Well, the next one is my favourite band of all time. It doesn't have to be a band, it can be like a solo artist, but like favourite music act of all time.
Yeah, Eve, my partner, would say that I'm a music snob, which I am, in fairness. Not in that, like, I'm just really, like, eclectic with my taste.
Sure.
I'm on a big Def Grips vibe at the moment. Like, I'm listening to those a lot, and Danny Brown. To go through history, like, Enter Shikari are always someone that are, like, close to my heart. Like, I really like them. Early days Gallows as well. Like, I'm big into... There's a band called The Drums, and their first couple of albums are really good. Big fan of like Susie and the Banshees. I like them. Quite like Joy Division as well. And I'm sure I'm missing out a bunch of people that like I have on my Spotify list that I listen to on a regular basis.
Sure. But still pretty eclectic taste there as well, like you say.
I would say so. And then in terms of that as well, like to go even further afield, like I really like Taylor Swift. Kesha's like
very different.
Yeah, like I'm super all over the place. I quite like a lot of rap stuff. Like my only thing that I'm really not into is country. Like, outside of that, I'm pretty good with everything, and I will listen to some like really bizarre stuff. Just like if it sounds cool, I'm there for it.
Nice. Next one is the best gig I've ever been to.
So that would probably be the first Enter Shikari gig that I went to, which was ages ago, and that makes me feel really old. Easy over 10 years ago. But it was just after their second album, Common Dreads, at the O2 Academy in Sheffield.
Yeah.
It was. I was just there, and I was like, "This is insane! Like, this is one of the best things I've ever been to." In saying that, I went to. So this is probably for like a small few people who know about Gallows' history, but like Gallows used to be Frank Carter, and then he left the band, and then the new singer came in. I can't remember his name, but he's from some back. Anyway, there was a split point between the two.
Yeah, I stopped listening when Frank Carter left. And then,
right.
Yeah.
So I don't mind the next album, but it's not as good. It's not the same band. Anyway, I managed to get to a Gallows gig in Leeds like 2 months before they split up.
Right.
So it was literally like farewell tour, and there you went. And didn't realise at the time, but like that was a pretty like pivot for me, where I was like, this is insane, which sort of influences a lot of how I feel about wrestling in the way of like the atmosphere and like the vibe to it and stuff like that. I much prefer that over like stadium rock. I went to see Kasabian an arena somewhere, and it was a good gig. It's not the same though.
No. A gritty like pub or club venue is always a better gig.
Yeah, absolutely.
Nice, yeah. Frank Carter as well, such an underrated frontman, just generally. Like, he is so good on the mic.
So something that I love, and something that like is a working development for me as a pro wrestler, is like looking at these frontmen, especially like in these like punk, post-punk bands that just have this energy that they, and like Frank Carter's a prime example of it. Enter Shikari do it very well across the board with all their members. Idols do it as well, where it's just this energy that they bring forward that is like really undescribable, but you know exactly when you see it.
Yeah, nice. I like it. The next one is the movie that I chose, The Locker Room.
Would that be like, so probably Beyond the Mat. It's one of my favourite things of all time, I would say. My nan got me that for the Christmas when I was like 7 or 8 years old, which is probably not a VHS that you should be.
No. I think you should have a bigger age limit than that. Yeah.
Probably right, but she was like, "Oh, it's wrestling, and there's The Rock, and I know he likes it. He likes The Rock, so I'll get him this." And I sat there and watching. I was enamored with it. I was like, "This is incredible," and like. Probably shouldn't be looking at like Jake Roberts being like, "Oh, I could be mayor of this town," like at 8. But I was like, "This is everything that I want to do in my life." I suppose it's a bit of a litmus test. Like, if you can watch that and be like, "Yeah, I still really like this weird thing called pro wrestling," you're going to do pretty all right of it. So yeah, probably Beyond the Mat would be my go-to.
Love it. The next one is my favourite way to relax.
Got 2 options out of this. I enjoy going to the gym, and it's not like a relaxing activity, but like it's very much somewhere where I feel like my headspace is allowed to just like go and think, and like a lot of ideas that I have tend to come at the gym, where like I'm doing stuff and I'm like, okay, cool, and then this and this and this, and that all builds out of that. But then outside of that, I like going to a canal and like watching the ducks float by. Like ducks are like top tier for me.
Yeah.
I proposed at a canal, so that it holds like a big place in my heart.
Sure.
So if I'm looking to be really, really relaxed, nice sunny day with some ducks floating by, I've got probably cornflakes and sweet corn for ducks. They're not really supposed to eat bread. So yeah, that's what I'll be doing.
Nice. I like it. I don't have my favourite animal on this list, and now I'm wondering why I don't, because that's such an obvious one.
So to start it off for you, ducks, I would say top tier.
Nice, I like it. I go red panda at the top. They're my favourite.
Yeah, it's a good shout. Yeah.
But I like ducks as well. My partner's always on about well, we can't have a garden because we live in London. Who can afford a garden in London, right? But like, she's like, if we ever get a garden, we've got to have ducks. I'm like, yeah, we can get ducks. That'd be cool.
Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. Apparently they're a bit messy though in terms of like droppings and stuff like that. So it's a sacrifice after there when we get a duck.
Nice. Next one is it's a bit of a throwback because it's my first job.
So in terms of proper stuff, like I did a couple of bits and pieces here and there. Like I spent a couple of days like creating some like boxes in a factory and stuff like that, and that didn't last. My first like proper full on job, I was working in the cavalry, so I was like a waiter in the cavalry, and then I moved on to the bar there.
Nice.
And that really afforded me the chance to go into wrestling. But yeah, that's what I did.
Sure.
And also I got free cavalry, so that was.
That's never a bad thing, is it?
No, genuinely, the place that I worked was probably the best cavalry that I've ever had, and that's not just me like bigging it up. Like it was the best cavalry.
Nice.
And, like they used to do like this gammon baguette sandwich with like roast potatoes, and it's one of the best things I've ever had in my entire life.
Damn, that is good. That is good. Yeah, that sounds awesome. I'm really hungry now. That's made me really hungry. Yeah. What do you go for though? Like say like a baguette aside, what's your like roast of choice if you're going to cavalry?
Probably beef and gammon.
Nice.
Is a regular one. That's where I'd go out with it. I'm not a massive turkey guy. I tend to find that they dry.
Yeah, chicken as well. Yeah, they're both a bit.
Yeah. They'd be my go-tos.
Nice, love it. The next one is if I wasn't a wrestler, I'd be.
So the easy one out of that would probably be a personal trainer. And that's me helping people out of it. The more that I've done pro wrestling, or more that I've done coaching, though, I could probably see myself working in some sort of like teaching care role. And again, he would probably say the same thing. Like she says that I've got a very good patience in terms of like teaching stuff like that. I just enjoy it. Like I enjoy working with people and seeing them prosper out of it. So that's probably where I would go.
Nice. The next one is it'll get a bit deep with the next one because it's my greatest fear.
Interesting. So, like, overall, I'm not particularly a fearful guy. Like, there's obviously things that, like, come up, like, once I get to a certain height, I'm a bit like, oh, this is a bit
too high,
like,
yeah.
I once did, like, an indoor caving type of deal.
Oh, right.
Like, I got right to the bottom and, like, basically got stuck and had to jimmy my way out of it. And I was like, yeah, this is getting pretty hectic out of it. Probably, though, I don't want to say like a fear of failure, but a fear of putting myself out to then fail is something that I have struggled with for a lot of years, a long, long time, which when it comes to pro wrestling, it can be a really daunting thing because we go out and we perform out that way. And I suppose a lot of people look at me and go, well, you're a confident guy. And to an extent I am, but then the fear of putting something out for then it not to hit or for it to be negatively critiqued and stuff like that, which people are more than welcome to do because it's their personal opinion that they can put out there. It stops me putting stuff out sometimes because of, oh God, what if? Like, to a point where I'm almost like, I'd rather it not do any views than it actually do views and do well. But that's the risk that we've got to take when we go out and we perform. And like, it's always been a difficult thing. Like, it's probably one of the reasons why I've never pushed out as much as I could, because there is a genuine, not fear as in like it's a paralyzing fear, but the mental.
I get that.
Blocking a mental fear out of it. Which again is not to say that people can't have negative opinions on stuff. They absolutely can do. It's just me being hardened enough to be able to take that and go, that isn't an indictment on me as a person. That is just that they have not enjoyed the art that I've put out. But then when you put your passion into putting that art out, it can soon become very personal.
Yeah, no, I get that. I understand that. We've got a couple of wrestling ones to move on to next. The first one is a bit of a two-parter because it's my favourite wrestling match. And it's a two-parter because I'm going to ask you for one you've been in and one you've watched.
Cool. So, every match that I've been in, God, I'm rubbish on stuff like this. I'm like, especially ones that I've been in, because I'm like, yeah, okay.
It doesn't have to be, say, the most technically proficient, just the one that, while you're in the ring, just like, you were like, oh, I'm loving this.
Yeah, so it probably goes to back when we were doing the NGW Butlins camps, where I wouldn't even necessarily say it's a match. It's just that sort of time period where I felt like I was in the best flow of stuff because the Butlins shows are really fun, really easy. And there's like so many people there. There's a stupid amount of people. And just having people engaging in what you're doing that aren't wrestling fans, like, really stands out. I'd say probably from like a performance point of view, it would be the match I had at WCPW against Zack Sabre Jr. That to me is probably like the first essence of me being the wrestler that I know I can be at a point where that was very much like in a developing stage of it. But I mean, that's a silly match because that's got Jim Ross and Matt Striker commentating on it. And I'm like, I look back on it and I go, what's this about? Like, why has this happened? And so that's probably like a match to pick out from that. And then there was a really silly that never went out anywhere. There was a really silly 7-man scramble from a show in Sunderland where Chuck Mambo was in it.
Right.
And he came out with like all his like beach ball stuff. So I decided that I was going to try and hit as many people as possible with the beach balls, which started out with everybody in ring hitting Amir Jordan with the beach ball when he did his big like show out in the ring. And then during the point of the match where it all sort of descended into madness and we all went onto the outside, I was literally just playing dodgeball with people.
Amazing. Why has this not been seen? Why is this not anywhere?
because it's a terrible wrestling match.
No, that sounds great.
Yeah, maybe when it comes to the end of my span and I go, all right, that's me done and I've got nothing, and I'm not risking anybody else that exists in that match that I can go, cool, here you go.
Okay, well, we can't wait to see that, like, eventually one day.
Give me a couple of years and that might be there. It may be on a private YouTube link that is uploaded to my YouTube, so there is footage that exists of it. And then, favourite wrestling match, I've got 2 options here because I'm an indecisive person. One that holds a big memory for me is Rock and Austin WrestleMania 17. Limp Bizkit, once again, with My Way in that video package, is, for me, probably the best piece of wrestling media that has ever existed.
Yeah.
Like, to pull me into a match, there is nothing that beats that. Like, that is like...
That was the pinnacle of, like, pre-match sort of promo reels.
Every time I see it, I then go, man, I really need to sit down and watch this match. And every time, it doesn't fail. So, yeah, that and just that being very much my introduction into wrestling, like, holds a place in my heart. And then Bryan Danielson and Nigel McGuinness, ROH in Liverpool, where they do the unification match. For me, that's the epitome of, like, live wrestling. Yes, it's filmed, but they are working for the audience. Yeah. And, like, that era of ROH for me is like, this is the best.
Oh, for sure.
For pro wrestling.
Absolutely. Couldn't agree more. The next one is, let's say in person as well, because it's the biggest pop I've ever heard.
Oh, so that is Altrincham, where I was talking about the show, and then it's Kurt Angle and Cody Rhodes. Kurt Angle pulling his straps down is easily the loudest pop I've ever heard in my life. Not him doing any moves, him pulling straps down was insane. Yeah. There was me and HT Drake sat right up in the back and beyond, like watching from the top, and I was like, this is mental. This is unbelievable.
Yeah, it's those sort of things, isn't it? It's like the Hulk hulking up, or like the Rock getting ready to hit the people's elbow. It's the movement beforehand that gets the bigger pop than any sort of move.
Yeah, and they went ballistic for it. It was unbelievable.
Love it.
So yeah, that's the one.
Amazing. The next one is my favourite venue to wrestle in.
The Northumbria Uni holds like a close place in my heart. I love the Anarchy Brew Co as well. That's a good venue. I do wish there was showers in there because it's like, obviously it's a brewery, but you know, we live with it. Hull City Hall like holds a close place in my heart, and like I love the look of that. I can give you definitive... no, I can't give you a definitive worst venue because I've got a couple of those. But that's probably the more interesting one.
Yeah.
Definitive worst venues. Liverpool Olympia is the coldest venue I've ever been in my entire life. And to set up a ring in there, January 4th was the coldest experience I've ever had in my entire life.
Yeah.
There was... I want to say it was the Lazy Bear Lodge, but I might be wrong on that, where we got changed in literally a cupboard. And the ring was a 10-foot ring. And and we couldn't sit backstage, so we had to sit out ringside. So that was pretty terrible. And there's a place called Rose Bowl in Stockton-upon-Tees, where once again and these cards were always overbooked with like 4 ways and stuff on it, and we got changed in like a changing room that was suitable for one person, and there was at least 12 of them. So.
Wonderful. Brilliant. Well, the final couple are, the first one is my favourite place in the world.
Probably be the canal, Brighouse Canal. Holds a special place in my heart for various reasons. So I would say Brighouse Canal is probably my favourite place in the world.
Nice. And the final one then is my dream holiday destination.
Now, if I was working for myself and Eve Bateman, it would be a case of Paris and going to Paris and stuff like that. And we went for a city break. For myself, I would probably go to Florida or somewhere in the US purely to get Mountain Dew flavored drinks, as in like they've got a blue one that I believe is called Quantum. And they've got a red one which is called Red, and they're like the epitome of drinks. So
nice.
Like not for anything else.
No, that's it. That's all you need from a holiday is Mountain Dew, right?
Pretty much, right? Pretty much. So, but in saying that, I do like America, and I do like Florida, and like I've been to like Universal and stuff like that in the past, and like I enjoy going there. But then also in saying that, like a European trip is very much on the cards, and that's something that I'm looking forward to. Like we've been to Amsterdam, and that's a nice place. I wrestled in Italy, and then we went to Pisa as well, and that's a lovely part of the world. So yeah. Nice. Probably a mix between those two.
Awesome. No, I understand the Mountain Dew thing because, like, me and my partner really want to go to Japan. And it's the case that, if you're in Japan, you're going to try all the Kit Kat flavors they got out there, right? So,
right. Yeah.
It's very relatable. I get that.
Yeah, absolutely.
You got to try the stuff you can't get here, always. And always when I go away, I like to try McDonald's, like, just because I know it's bad, but, like, you want to see how McDonald's differs, right, in different places.
Totally. French McDonald's, lovely. It's great stuff. But, yeah, like, in America, French toast is just completely different, and like it's just well good. So yeah,
nice.
Just get really fat if I went to America.
No, I think we all would. Brilliant, Liam Slater. Thank you so much for coming on the Grapple Theory podcast. It's been an absolute pleasure having you on. I hope you've enjoyed it.
Yeah, absolutely. It's been a great chat. Thank you very much, and thanks for giving me the time and the platform.
Of course, absolutely. No, thank you for accepting our invitation. And we always end each show by giving our guest a little bit of promo time. So if anyone sees you on a match poster at North or anywhere else in the country, or if they want to come and check out Pursuit as well to do a bit of training, talk to us about why they should come and check out Pursuit, or why they should come out and check out Liam Slater, why Liam Slater is going to steal the show on any show that he's on.
So if I talk about me first, the reason why I think I'm a valuable asset to cards is because, like, really I deeply care about pro wrestling, and I deeply care about the card across the board. So wherever you see me, like, I'm going to perform at my best capacity for where we are in the show and what's needed of me. I like to think that I bring a unique style of wrestling to a ring, and I like to think that I bring a genuine style of wrestling to the ring, in that, like, again, I deeply care about what I'm doing. Not saying that other people don't, but like for me, pro wrestling is an art form and it's my artistic expression. So for me, that's very much a case that I'm artistically expressing while I'm in a ring, and that allows me to bring out the best that I can from it. So that's me. And then for Pursuit Pro Wrestling, which I think is way more important and way more valuable in terms of time, we have, I would say, from my years of training, the best community out of anywhere. We've got a bunch of people that all care about each other, that are all bigging each other up, that are all pushing each other. The amount of talent that comes through Pursuit is incredible. And also, like, it's an open door of, like, what you want to come down with and what you want to train and stuff like that. We will facilitate to the best of his ability. I try and get the best out of people, not by me going, you need to go and do this, this, and this, but asking them what they want to do and how they want to do it, and then facilitating that best that I can. If people have more, like, interest in terms of, like, coming to Pursuit, especially, like, if they're in, like, a Yorkshire area, if you go to our website, pursuitprowrestling.com, you'll have loads of information there, and you can drop me an email that way.
Brilliant. Liam, thanks so much for coming on the show.
No worries at all. Cheers, man. Thank you.